Hello everybody, my name is Mr. Hat, and today we're going to be going over the top 5 horror movies of 2018. This was a great year for horror. We had a lot of slashers with Hellfest, Halloween, and originals, very creative, like, the Hereditary and A Quiet Place. We got a lot of them. We got even little weird ones. We got like Leprechaun. I made another Leprechaun movie this year. Now I'm not gonna be going over the top 5 worst. I haven't even seen enough bad movies, horror movies this year to make a top 5 horrible ones. Let's just say Slender Man, The Nun, Possession of Hannah Grace. There, top 3. They suck. And Mandy, if you want to count that as a horror movie, it was horrible. Does that count? Sure. But let's just go over my top 5 of this year, and we're gonna start up right now. Number 5 for me is gonna go to the sequel to the 2008 Strangers movie, Strangers Pray at Night. Now, when I first saw this movie, I did not like it because of stupid character decisions, and that's why it's all the way at the bottom. This movie is very awesome with like the soundtrack and that pool scene. That almost makes the whole movie worth it. But yeah, you got these characters that make stupid decisions. But I love that there's like 3 killers, and we got these 2 kids, they're brother and sister, they team up, and they fight the 3 masked killers. They actually get to kick some ass, and you don't get to see that too often in horror movies. And just like I said, that pool scene, the music that's playing that doesn't match what's happening at all. It's like nice music while carnage is happening. It's an interesting new setting for like a horror movie. It's like a trailer park. It's like an abandoned trailer park area. I don't know where they were at. I forget. I haven't seen this movie in like 8 months or so, 9 months, so I can't. I'm just going off the top of my memory. But I just remember this movie was very decent. It was pretty decent, and that's why it's my number 5. Number 4 is going to go to Hellfest. Now, this is a movie that's been done before, but more cheesy and B-movie-like. It was called Funhouse Massacre. I did a review for it. But this took the more serious route where a woman goes to a Hellfest. It's like, Land of Illusions, like a haunted theme park. But meanwhile, there's just this guy who picks random people to stalk throughout the entire night and eventually kill them. And he picks them based off of people who try to act like they're not scared. You always got that one friend in your group who tries to act like they're not scared, and they talk shit to the people working there trying to scare them, pissing them off. But you don't want to piss this guy off because he's gonna kill you. I like it. I like that we don't get to know the killer really. We know he has a kid towards the end. We know he has a normal life, that he has this life hidden. It's like a John Wayne Gacy almost. He's just a serial killer with no motivation other than he's just crazy. And I like the simplicity around that. Just like, Halloween and Black Christmas. This is just like one of those. I also just love the concept. It's such an easy concept. I don't know why it hasn't been done already. It's like it's 2018. It took this long to make a serious horror movie with this concept. Now, as a slasher, it is lackluster. You're not going to see carnage in this movie like blood and guts. You'll see a little bit of blood, but it's more about just building up like tension and scares. And there's lots of scares in this movie. Moving on to my number 3, or 3 in Europe. My number 3 is going to go to A Quiet Place. I saw this at the theater with my dad, and this movie is very quiet. And I think that's very like odd, but it's also very unique. I think it's just like a ballsy decision. Like how crazy, like how hard would that be? Like you write a movie with no sound. You're just writing descriptions in the script. There's like no words said in this movie until like over halfway through when they're at that lake or that little stream where the water falls loud enough for the creatures not to hear it. Now the creatures, they don't really look that creatively different. It just looks like typical monsters. They're weird looking, but the whole idea that they have at the end and how to kill them, you're like, how did no one think of this before? If they have sensitive hearing, why don't you use that against them? But this movie was just very unique. It's very, very, very tense. That bathroom scene when she's like giving birth and she can't make a noise, that shit was awesome. I love the chemistry between these people. Like it's actually like the main 2, John Krasinski and Emily Blunt. I think they're married. I could be wrong. I don't research this shit before I start talking. I just kind of go like, I think they're married. I think they're married in real life. But you can tell because the chemistry's there, and I love these characters. You got the daughter who blames herself for one of the other daughters getting murdered at the beginning. So John Krasinski, he's like building this ear raid to like make her, because he feels bad for her, I think, and he just wants her to know that he still loves her despite her fuck up at the beginning, and then he sacrifices himself, and it's a very sad movie, and that's why it's my number 3. Number 2 is gonna go to a movie that didn't go to theaters, so I'm cheating on this one. Summer of '84. This movie has all the 80s nostalgia in it for all you people who grew up in the 80s. This movie banks off of this whole 80s craze we're going through right now, like Stranger Things, It. So this is just another one of those movies that's just capitalizing off of everyone loving to see 80s stuff in movies now. But what I love about this movie is that the whole movie is telling you that this guy's the killer. This guy's the killer. And it's like a mystery. And it's just so obvious who it is that you're trying to think who else it could be. And then at the end, it's who you thought it was. I just love that it had the balls to do that. And the decision to like have the killer not kill the one kid and just tell him he's going to stalk him for the rest of his life and he better keep one eye open. I thought that was a crazy, different ending I've never seen before in horror movies. In horror movies, it's always evil lives on. And yes, this technically counts as evil lives on. But this is very different still. But anyways, before we get to my number 1, let's just go over a few honorable mentions for my top 5 horror movies. I mentioned this one before in a disappointment video, but I'm going to say it again. Victor Crowley. As much of a disappointment as this movie was for me, I still enjoyed it. This movie went straight to DVD and Blu-ray, but if you're a slasher fan who just likes to see people get beaten in their face with a hammer, this is your type of movie. It's checking all the boxes. It's like an 80s horror slasher like Friday the 13th. It's very fun in some moments. Got some cheesy dialogue, some jokes, and lots of carnage, and I love it. Next up will be Unfriended Dark Web. This movie takes the more realistic route than the first movie. This is a sequel to Unfriended, which was like a supernatural movie back in like 2015. But this one's more about like this underground organization that like hacks people's webcams and shit and like gets them to, I don't know, kidnaps them and shit and like gets them to get killed or somehow. I forget what happens. But I just remember this movie being pretty intense, especially towards the end. But then like, yeah, it has a bad ending. So that's why I didn't make my actual list. It's just an honorable mention. And my last honorable mention will be Cam, the Netflix movie. This movie is supernatural. It's basically got this supernatural element where this Cam girl gets like cloned. There's like this replica of her that's like taking her spot, and she doesn't know who the hell this person is, who looks exactly like her, sounds like her, basically is her, because it is, but it's not really explained, and that's what I don't like about this movie. There's no explanation about what's happening and why, so it's just kind of like, well, what's the point? This is just happening for shits and giggles? We never really know what this supernatural being is that's like replicating all these cam girls and ruining their lives. I don't get it. But it was still very intense. I enjoyed the beginning especially. That was a killer opening. And then that very brutal third act too, when she's banging her head on the desk. And that's why it's an honorable mention. Now my number 1. I think we saw this coming. My number 1 is going to go to a movie that's been in other lists. Disappointments and best movie of the year. Best 5 movies of the year. My number 1 horror movie is Halloween 2018. This movie got so many things right. They got Myers right. The portrayal of him, the brutality, the mystery. They brought back Jamie Lee Curtis. The score being done again by John Carpenter himself. Amazing score. Shot beautifully by David Gordon Green. Lit well. Like that attic scene where Myers is hiding in the corner. Myers does a lot of stalking in this movie, just like he did in the original. Some very brutal kills. A lot of them are off camera, but that adds to the intensity and the imaginations. Like, holy shit, what did he do to that guy's face? The guy missing all his teeth on the counter. The bathroom scene. So many great things about this movie. There's just a few things that pissed me off. I've said them again. You know, you got the hokey cops. You got this love triangle. It's stupid. It's not necessary. You got the dick boyfriend who doesn't die. You got the parents who are very wacky and weird. And then you got the subplot with Dr. Evil, Dr. Sartain, taking the mask and revealing that he's evil. He let Myers escape through the bus. It's like, well, I would much rather believe that Myers escaped on his own, not because of Dr. Evil. But despite all those little things that irritated the fuck out of me, it did not ruin the overall enjoyment. This movie was amazing. Definitely the best horror movie, to come out in 2018. And that's why it's my number 1. And that's my top 5 horror movies of 2018. What did you think about it? Are any of these movies in your list? What's your favorite horror movie of this year? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, you can hit this like button over here to support this video. And you can support this channel by clicking on my cartoon face in 5 seconds to subscribe. And until next time, auf Wiedersehen.